Hi. How you doing?
You guys, the ADHD is real today with this one.
There's always 19 things happening all at the same time in my brain.
And in the physical manifestation of your world as well.
Yes, that is an accurate statement. I got lots of going on, but I'm very excited about this topic today.
I am too. You guys, it's a Femininomenon.
Yes. Also love me some Chapel Roan.
That's such a good song. Did you see when Alona Mar was on Dancing with the Stars and did this song?
Sure didn't.
God, she's so fantastic.
The last time I watched
love her.
Dancing with the Stars was probably when Heinz Ward was on.
I've never actually watched the show. I just watched her Instagram.
Oh.
Come on, Rachel. You know me better than
I was like, I did not know that you were into that show, but
nope, sure I'm not.
Learn something new every day, I guess.
I've never watched one episode of that show.
Yeah. When Heinz was on, I watched that whole season.
Oh, that's right. You have a big old crush on him, huh?
I do. I mean, I think he's from that time period when I was real into the Steelers before I had kids and had time to watch football. I remember when I was big into the Penguins and watched.
That was my Penguins era.
Yeah.
When you were in football, I was into hockey.
Yeah. I mean, I loved it. I still love sports. I just don't have time to dedicate to watching every game and getting emotionally involved. I'm like, yeah, I don't care.
Do you remember when I ran into Evgeny Malkin in Giant Eagle and got a picture with him in front of the shampoo aisle?
No.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So funny.
Yeah, my favorite Penguin story had to do from my 20s when I was living with a former beauty queen, good friend of mine at the time. So naturally, she was quite tall, like yourself, and would only date tall men. Like they had to be tall. And was dating a penguin. He was not very smart.
Oh, no.
No. He would always say, too many pucks to the head. You know, naturally, I'm not going to share any names. You know how Jeff will sometimes call me Rachael? That's where that came from. So how the nickname came about. So we were out and I was like, you do know that it's Rachael with a hard CH. He was like, yeah, but I'm missing too many teeth. And I was like, fine, fair. And then I look in his phone and he has spelled my name Racial. Like the fucking word racial. Like I'm racially profiling someone. And I was like, dude, it's one thing to not be able to say my name, but it's another to not know how to fucking spell it.
Too many pucks.
Too many pucks to the head. So then it just stuck. Everyone was like, racial. And yeah, there you go. All right, so back to the Femininomenon.
All right, guys. Today we are talking about full moons, the Femininomenon, the sacred cycle of the ladies, and how it all ties together.
And it goes deep. Well, it goes as deep as you want it to go, but I find it magical, mystical, incredibly gifting and wonderful and complex. And
speaking of going deep, did you know?
Yes.
Did you know that it's a saying that said?
It's a saying that said.
It's a saying to knock the bottom out of it. I don't think I need to explain, right?
Well, probably. Knock the bottom out of the cervix?
Yeah.
Is there a bottom?
Well, listen, apparently in man world, we were somewhere this week and we were commenting on this guy who was extra douchey. And
Okay.
Charlie's like, he's the kind of guy that says knock the bottom out of it. And I was like, oh my God, I didn't even know this was a thing.
I've never heard that.
Neither had I.
Well, it can't be that common.
I don't know.
Doesn't run in our circles.
I really like to hang out with a lot of douchey guys.
No.
So
we all know how I feel about it.
no douche canoes.
No
Thanks.
douche canoes. Gotta have a brain. If you call me Rachael, you're definitely out of the inner circle. You might be on the farther outer rims of any circle.
Let's just keep astronomy out of this for your sake, shall we?
We're literally talking about the moon.
All right, let's welcome them.
All right.
Welcome to Two Mystic Mamas. I can't. You guys.
I never know what story's going to come up, but I'm really glad this one did because that's always a fun story, even though it annoys me. But it makes me
I can
laugh.
literally see all the thoughts going through your head right now.
Mm-hmm.
There are a lot, my friends. Hey, Cosmic Crew. We've partnered with Jenny Dee Astrology to bring you important astrological forecasts throughout the summer. Here's Jenny Dee with the forecast.
Hey, beautiful. It's Jenny Dee with your astrological weather forecast for the week of June 10th. And this one is going to be lit from within. This week, we have a full moon in Sagittarius, the sign of visionaries, seekers, unfiltered truth tellers. You know the type that I'm talking about. The moon is feminine in astrology, not just woman, not just mother, but divine feminine in her truest form. It is cyclical. It is instinctual. It's emotional, ancient. It holds the tides, memories, the past, the body. It contains the soul. And she doesn't push, she pulls. She invites. She doesn't shout, she reveals.
For the complete astrological forecast, head over to our YouTube channel, Two Mystic Mamas. Link is in the episode description. For more information or to have your complete natal chart read by a professional, check out jennydeeastrology.com. JENNYDEE astrology.com. Okay, so let's start with the moon.
The moon is not a planet.
Rachael, our resident expert on all things the moon.
That is going to be my next tattoo. So yeah, there's 8 cycles that the moon goes through. And throughout history, many cultures have associated the moon with being a feminine moon, and also how it comes together with the menstrual cycle of being a woman.
Well, I think first we can talk a little bit about the science of it. You know, the moon and the tides and how she, the moon, pulls the waters within and around us, right? So the moon's gravitational pull is strong enough to move the ocean, right? So she pulls on Earth's ocean and she creates a bulge of water.
Yes.
Which is high tide. And there's actually 2 high tides every single day. One where the moon pulls the ocean kind of towards it, and then on the opposite side of the Earth, due to the centrifugal force, you have this kind of pushing and pulling that's happening. And as the Earth rotates, different places move through these bulges.
Yes.
Have you ever seen a diagram of this? I think maybe Neil deGrasse Tyson had one on his Instagram page a while back. It was like a really great visual to see how this works and how this bulge is created.
I feel like it's also so symbolic because it shows balance, right? How do we stay in balance, but how do things flow? And then the body of water, the movement of water is so symbolic too of menstrual cycles. I know we're still talking about the scientific part of it, but I feel like in all of these bullet points, there's a lot of symbolism.
Oh, 100%. I mean, we have high tides and low tides on a regular rhythm, right? We have moon cycles on a regular rhythm.
Correct.
And just like the tides rise and fall, we expand and we contract. And it only makes sense because we're made up of 50% water or whatever.
I think it's
70%
more than that.
water.
Yeah, I think it's more than that. But yes.
That it would also pull.
Correct.
On us.
Yep.
Right?
And, the gravitational pull of the moon does affect more than just the tide. So naturally it affects us, humans.
Right.
It also affects animals and their behavior as well. And some studies are starting to show that it can have effects on other geographical type issues like earthquakes and...
I mean, there's, of course it would. The tectonic plates, a lot of them are underneath
the water.
Oh, shit.
Yep.
So, I mean, it only makes sense that all of that would move.
Be connected. Yep. So without the moon, needless to say, we'd be fucked. But we also, that's why the power of the moon and the energy of the moon is so beautiful and wonderful because you can harness it based on what phase it's in.
Well, we can really honor our inner tides. And I think for me, the takeaway in this is that we can be synced up to what's happening with the moon, even if our cycles aren't 100% aligned with the moon cycles. Although each menstrual cycle does have a moon cycle that it is associated with.
Yes. And when you are born, you also have a natal lunar cycle. That is also important.
I don't know a lot about that.
Well, I don't know a ton, but I do know just in doing some research here, we also associate the moon with fertility.
Right.
And many cultures have associated it with that as well, because naturally that goes right along with being a woman and being able to create and carry life. And there are different cycles with the moon and your menstrual cycle where you're more fertile. And that's another one that you can pay attention to. It's like 13 times a year. Wherever the moon was when you were born in that cycle, that can be associated to also being a more fertile time for you to conceive.
Interesting.
Yeah. I like those little tidbits of things. And, you know, being fertile and paying attention to that if you are trying to conceive and you haven't even remotely thought about how the moon can impact that, do some research. It's fascinating to see some of the information that supports that.
I'm really curious too as to how all of that changes and how we're affected by the moon once we have gone through menopause. Do you know anything about that?
I do know that over our lifetime that we will have approximately around 400 periods.
I'm having a 400-day long period right now.
I know. Well, I don't know how much of that you want to share, but I do feel like that is something that
I would like to know what the fuck is up with my uterus.
Yeah, I know a lot of women that, you know, can struggle with different types of issue.
And I'm fine sharing with this. You know, I have kind of had a tumultuous up and down history with my cycle. And the very first time I ever got my period actually was having an ovarian cyst rupture. So it wasn't actually a true menstrual cycle. But like this was trauma, my first, right?
Ugh.
And it was very late for me. I was 14, 15-ish in there.
Now, do you know if that was genetic? Did your mom have a late period start too?
I'm not 100% certain.
Because sometimes I feel like that is like good information to know.
I do know she went through menopause like considerably later in life though.
Oh, okay. Like in her 60s?
Yeah, I think it was like a whole decade of like get through 11 months of not having a period and then she would have one.
Oh, wow. So clearly there's some genetic
and
connection
I don't know.
with
I
just
don't know. But to my knowledge, I don't think she ever had any issues with cysts or anything like that. I think that was just a me thing. So basically, I kind of struggled on and off with cysts throughout my late teens, early 20s. And then things like settled down. And I was honestly on birth control from the time I got my very first period because it helps keep the cysts small until I had Evie. I think I was 32 when I had her. So it's just kind of always been this kind of rocky road. But I will say this, when I was on birth control all that time, I never once had like PMS symptoms. I didn't have like mood swings. I had pretty manageable periods, except when I would have like a cyst rise or something. I was like pretty easy breezy there.
Well, and I think you could probably attribute a lot to the birth control, keeping it at bay, right? Because Lord knows what it would have felt like had you not had anything there to help control that.
Right.
It could have, everything could have been like.
Right. It took about 6 months to get pregnant with Evie. So I was off, for that time. And then I went right back on birth control after that. It's just always been this thing. Charlie and I were on a path to try and conceive. And so I went off birth control and I have been off now for 6 or 7 years.
Yeah.
Yeah. Something. The lashals have gotten like longer and just like really hard and really heavy.
Yep.
And they've just gotten worse and worse. So I had some things happen actually when I came here to record one day that had us both getting me taking a pregnancy test and calling the doctor. Mm-hmm. So pregnancy test was negative. And then I ended up having a transvaginal ultrasound. This was all just in the last like 2 months. Mm-hmm. Everything was fine. There was no fibroids. There were no big cysts. There was nothing of note.
Mm-hmm. On the surface, though.
So then he started me on birth control on a new one. And I actually started taking it first day of my cycle and was supposed to go 84 days on this. But after the 3 weeks, I didn't continue on because I had been bleeding for 3 weeks. It's been 3 weeks since then that I've been off, at least maybe 4 now.
And you're still
6 or 7 weeks I've been bleeding.
The thing.
So, yeah, I'm now on a course. I've been on progesterone for, I'm on day 11 now to try and stabilize things in there. And then he'll put me back on the birth control when I'm done. So
the thing I think it brings up for me is I feel really passionately about this is how understudied women's health is and how understudied our anatomy is, our cycles are. So talking about like menstrual blood in general, and how powerful it is and like what makes it up. But even talking about someone who's been in your position where you've been bleeding for over 30 days, which is a ridiculous amount of time to just like physically, it's too much, right? It's too much on our bodies. It depletes us of vital nutrients that we need in our bodies to function. It also just takes so much out of you emotionally and mentally, because I know that you mentioned that it's not easy to be intimate when you're bleeding so much. It just complicates things. Can you do it? And if you're having a regular normal period, I will tell you that sex during your period can be very, very heightened. It can make you way more sensitive and it can be enjoyable. But not when you've been like,
not when you feel like shit.
And you've been basically been hemorrhaging.
Right.
Like no, because you don't feel sexy, you don't feel attractive. You know, it's
there will be none of that has been happening.
No, and so my hope, and I'm manifesting this, I'm putting it out into the ether. We need more research to go towards women's health. I feel that as a human race, we would benefit so much by knowing more. It was only recently that they started using actual fucking blood to test the durability of tampons. Up to that point,
can you imagine?
They were using fucking water.
Can you imagine?
I'm sorry.
What the fucking powers that be would do if a man bled for 6 weeks?
Oh, first of all, we all know that men.
Can you imagine?
Are the government,
like, it would be
our corporations, they would all just fucking implode. Between that and having to deal with child rearing and all of that. I was just watching a podcast the other day. It was on Call Her Daddy, and Alex Cooper now has her own production company called Unwell. And so it has other podcasts under that umbrella.
Goals.
Yeah. There's a duo on there as well. And one of them is Bill Gates's daughter. I don't know the other young lady. Both highly intelligent women, like really funny. They were talking about being in a conference room with some venture capitalists, some men. And they were talking about the longevity of their companies that they were creating and what they were going to do when they had kids. And I was like, oh man, I literally would have seen red. I would have been like, first of all, how presumptuous of you to assume that all women want children.
Right.
Like, go fuck yourself.
Go fuck yourself sideways.
Yeah. Like, it's just not an assumption that any man should make. Secondly, we fucking would rule the world if we were given an opportunity like you. So don't come at us and say, what are you going to do when you have kids? The same fucking thing we've been doing? On top of also creating life. You know what I mean? Like, that gets my blood boiling. That gets my vagina hot. And not in a sexy way. Men that ask women that question are narcissistic pieces of shit. It's not a valid question. And I don't care how you want to slice and dice it. Like, oh no, it is a valid question because all women at some point are going to want to have babies. And then when they have babies, you know, shut your fit.
Shut your what?
I was going to say shut your fucking mouth, but instead I just said shut your fuck.
Shut your fuck.
Shut
your fuck.
Like it makes me so, like, don't ask us that question.
Listen,
because all they want is us to be like, well, then I'd have to quit because I can't possibly do it all.
Oh my goodness.
And there are women, to be fair, that can't do it all. And that needed to probably not have a job and have children at the same time.
I think it has a lot to do with your mental health, too.
I agree. Like, I'm not saying that it's not warranted in some...
Yeah, but not because they're women.
Not because they're women. Exactly. Like...
What are you going to do? What are you going to do when your wife has kids?
That's what she said. I think her name's Sophia.
Rachel and I are going to go off.
Sophia turned around and said, well, what are you going to do when you start a family?
How will you ever cope and run a company? You have to be there for those children, sir.
Oh, I'm sorry. You're not going to be a present parent? You don't say. How many kids out there know and have really good relationships with their moms, but
fucked sideways and upside down?
Absentee father, provided financially. Don't know his name, though. I think his name's Bob. My dad, Bob the builder, Bob the company builder. Anyways, back to bleeding and all things powerful and magical.
Can we go back to these Amazonian women for a minute?
Yes, let's talk about them.
You know, when I was growing up, I'm tall, right, guys? I'm 5'11". my whole life, that was something to be like, oh, you're tall like an Amazon. Da ba da ba da ba da. Fun fact: these female warriors and hunters,
Probably pretty short.
5'6".
Yeah,
That was the average height.
average. I feel like, again, they're trying to associate you to like a woman possibly in Africa, you know, like a runner, like an Ethiopian runner that are tall. I don't know.
Listen, nobody has ever looked at me and been like, you know what? I bet she's a marathon runner from Ethiopia. Never, ever
Valid,
has that
valid.
happened. Never have I ever reached.
Same.
I mean, I've run a half marathon. That's as far as it gets. And I can assure you, I did not look graceful doing it.
All right. So speaking of cultures and where they put the power with the women in the moon and the menstrual cycle.
I'm not following.
Okay. There's different cultures around the world that have put a lot of emphasis behind how incredible women are and the menstrual cycle
Let's fucking celebrate them.
with the moon. So, no surprise here. We're going to be talking about some indigenous cultures.
Yes, my people.
So the Navajo, the Hopi, and the Sioux, they have rituals and ceremonies that not only honor the connection between the women's menstrual cycle and the moon, but also the first menstrual cycle, having a little period party for the girls out there.
Okay, I have to share on our socials. This might be my favorite marketing video of all time to ever exist. And it is a first moon party. Have you seen it? Have I showed it to you?
You have not, but we need to mark it down so we can share it on our socials.
10 years ago, like when Evie was a baby, what I think it was, my one friend in the Golden Girls sent me this video and was like, I can see you doing this to Evie someday.
Yeah.
And this has remained one of my very favorite videos ever.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. That's good. Emmeline recently got her period for the first time.
Yeah.
It was good. It wasn't bad. We had talked a lot about it leading up to it. She had this, preconceived notion that it was going to be this devastating, unbelievable sitch. And it wasn't. It was okay. It happened over a weekend, so we could prepare. And naturally, we had a whole starter kit ready to rock and roll. And for the most part, it's been pretty good. I've only wanted to strangle Jeff maybe like 2 or 3 times so far, just with his lovely comments, because it came upon during wrestling season. And he, the first time it happened, she was like, "Can we go get pepperoni rolls?" And I was like, "Yes, we can." And he was like,
Anything you want.
he's like, "What?" And I was like, "You just shut your pie hole." He's like, "She can't be eating bread right now." I was like, "She can eat anything and everything that she wants."
Yep. Sorry,
Thank you.
Jeffrey.
Thank you, sir.
Should we start talking about the different cycles and how they correlate to the moon?
Well, let me finish the other cultural rituals. Okay, so talked about the indigenous and honoring that in general, but also getting your first. So having the first period moon party.
First moon party.
Yep. In Wiccan and pagan traditions, it's also seen as a sacred and powerful time. And they do a lot of rituals and spells focused on connecting and harnessing that energy with the moon. In Chinese medicine, the menstrual cycle is seen as a reflection of the cynical nature of the moon. Not cynical. Cyclical.
Damn cynical moon.
Cynical moon.
Just
There's
up
that
there
extra
mocking
letter.
me.
Ah! I was like, cynical? What?
Bastard.
What is it?
She's so cynical. Cyclical.
Cyclical. Phonics did not work for Rachel. And women are encouraged to rest and reflect during menstruation. And certain foods and herbs are prescribed to support the body's natural rhythms. Which I was just talking to Renee a little bit about that. And about how on the 3rd day of your cycle, you should go into keto. Like just focus on eating whole foods, no carbohydrates, limiting the sugar.
There is a really, really good book called Fast Like a Girl. And it is all about intermittent fasting, but it is designed by this very smart doctor to go along with your different menstrual cycle phases.
Mm-hmm.
And the foods that you should be eating to support your body during your menstruation, your follicular, your ovulation, and your luteal phases.
Yeah. Very, very cool.
Yeah.
Bet you guys didn't know that there was 4 phases that we go through. We're always in a phase.
Have you seen the videos of the girls? They'll like act out what they're like during each different phase of their cycle.
I've seen
On
a
Instagram,
woman
it's so
on
good.
Instagram that acts like she's a tampon in a vagina.
Oh, she's so great.
And she's so funny.
She's so great.
Yeah, I've seen that one.
She also acts as a penis sometimes.
Yeah.
She's so funny.
She's British.
Yes.
Yeah. So good. All right, so let's get into the phases.
In honor of my 400th day of period bleeding, let's talk about menstruation. It is associated with new moon energy. And I want to go back to something you just said, because the new moon is all about intention, right? And you were talking about how women in certain cultures are encouraged to rest, to take care of their bodies. And one thing that I wrote down actually for the menstruation part of this was bleeding with intention. And for me right now, it's like, okay, I've been in this phase for, I would really say 5 months of release now of the past. This is the next phase of release.
Right. Shedding.
Yeah.
I always associate the word shedding with my period. And
I do too, but I don't like it.
The word?
Yep.
Well, I think it's like, because you're preparing for what is to come. Or you could say letting go, releasing.
Yeah. Well,
just cleansing. I mean, there's a lot of words you could use
cleansing.
in replace of shedding that moist
Do you
fluid.
Stop it. Stop it. Do you know anybody that free bleeds?
I do not.
Neither do I.
That is next level. I
am very curious.
No,
if you are a person that does this, please write to us. We want to talk to you. We want to know all the things.
Yeah, I would love to explore that. I would not love to explore it myself. I think it's cool that women do it. I've seen women that have run without product and just let it flow. For me, that's a little much.
So I will say, before my period started getting really bad, like a year and a half ago, I was using a menstrual cup for quite a few years before then, and it was life-changing. If you're not having terrible periods, I'm telling you, the menstrual cup will just change your life.
Yeah.
It's so much better than tampons.
I've had interesting experiences. I think they're like anything else. You have to figure them out, right?
I preferred the disc to the cup, personally. Okay. I could not do the reusable disc. It wouldn't work for me. But the single-use discs...
Oh, I didn't even know they had those.
Were, again, I don't really like to be a single-use kind of consumer, but they did work for me really well. And when it would actually suction to your cervix, it would make my cramps go away, instantly.
Interesting.
Yeah.
I mean, there's lots of options, considering what they didn't have. Even with our girls, right? They make pads now that fit their size bodies, so they're not wearing a fucking diaper that also makes so much noise when you walk. Whoosh, 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 whoosh.
Oh, see, that's why they invented those freestyle windbreaker sets
in the 80s.
It was to mask the sound of
you
the
just
giant
wear
pads.
you just wear them while you have your period.
Yeah.
Whoosh, 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 whoosh. See, we've got it figured out now.
Oh man.
Again, all this shit is designed by men. We need to get more women in there designing shit for women.
But if you are in this menstruation cycle or phase, I should say, rest, release, winter over, if you will, allow yourself to retreat and think about what you're releasing physically, emotionally, spiritually, and just try to connect a little bit. It's also a really good time for dream work and divination. That intuition is usually very, very sharp during this time.
It's a lot stronger. So that's the new moon.
Yep. Then we move to the waxing moon.
Yep.
And the follicular phase.
And this is when the moon appears as a thinner sliver.
Yes, but it's growing.
It's growing, correct. So the new moon is when the moon is actually not visible at all. You can't see the moon. And then the waxing moon is when it starts to become more visible, but it's like a sliver. And so this is the follicle phase.
Follicular.
Sounds so...
Follicular.
Sounds so...
Well, this is your time for fresh starts and setting intentions and goals and channeling that inner rising energy, that brainstorming and planning and movement in your life.
Yeah, the harvesting, if you will. The changing from one to another.
Also a really good time to eat like really light, fresh foods too, to aid your digestion and rev up your energy, if you will. And I think a good affirmation if you're in this phase is, I am blooming and I trust in new beginnings. I'm going to try and start to do this. Once I get through this cycle that I'm in right now,
Yeah.
I'm going to be much more intentional about my affirmations. But I want to start to connect my affirmations to the phases of my menstrual cycle, which I haven't been actively doing.
Mm-mm. Well, it's like anything else. I think you need to take the time to associate for yourself, right? Look at your cycle, track your cycle, journal about your cycle for 3, 4, 5 months, whatever it is. And then during that time, you can also incorporate the moon and where the moon is and what the moon is doing. And then you can sync it up, right? And then you can understand as those phases are changing and your menstrual cycle is coming or going and what cycle you're actually in, because there are 4 cycles that we basically move through or are moving through at all times, which again just makes us incredibly magical, amazing creatures that we're always doing something with our body. Our bodies are always intertwined with so much more than we give it credit for. Like, women are very, very complex. We are not cut and dry. We're not black and white. We are all of it.
All right, let's move on to that full moon energy and ovulation.
Well, ovulation is when the eggs descend, right? This is when life can be created. So it's the same, just the symbolism is so, so strong with creating life, creating projects, creating whatever it is that you are on the path to create.
I think it's also a really good time for heart opening rituals or working with your heart chakra as well. And maybe a little sex magic thrown in there too.
Oh, yeah. Sex magic.
Sensuality.
I was
Getting after
watching
it.
this really interesting video, and full moons also are their own incredible entity where there's like different full moons that happen throughout the year, and there's different symbolisms behind different full moons. And so I'm sure all of you guys have witnessed full moons that when you walk outside, you're like, damn, it's bright as hell out here. Like, it is so bright.
Damn, moon,
damn, moon. What? This particular time, if there is a full moon that comes that is a brighter full moon, it's a great time to garden by the full moon's light.
Okay, so there's definitely people that only do their gardening,
Like planting their seeds.
planting and harvesting based on the cycles. And my grandfather would make fresh sauerkraut, and he would only harvest his cabbage from the garden during a full moon.
Yeah, see, old wives' tales, farmer's almanac, all of that stuff. I believe it. I do not think it is all for naught. I think there's a lot of fucking truth behind it.
Yeah.
Yeah, so ovulating, and when we ovulate, that was also a fun conversation with Emmy, because naturally she was just so concerned about the period, but not about anything else that came after that. So she was like, so there's this like white goopy, I don't
Oh,
know.
God, can we also not say the word goopy?
Well, how would you describe the consistency, Krystyn?
I believe that they say it is the consistency of egg whites.
I think they're full of shit. Okay, how would you
Go
describe
ahead, say goopy again.
How would you describe egg whites?
I'm really searching for another word other than goopy.
Okay, so shedding and goopy. This is going to be the merch for us. The shirt will just say, please don't say goopy, shedding, moist. But yeah, she was like asking me about it. And I was like, oh no, that's totally normal. And she was like, is this going to happen every time? I was like, yep, for the rest of your life. I was like, welcome. It's so much fun. Oh my God, the other day I was like, listen, when we had no power and I had all the kids and everything, I was like trying to wrangle them up or whatever. And I was like, Emmeline, I was like, I have 5 kids in the car. And she's like, no, you only have 4. I'm a woman now. And I was like, shut the fuck up.
That That is the proper response,
I know.
Evelyn. Yes, yes, yes.
I was
queen.
like, I couldn't stop laughing. I was like, no,
Yes.
no, no.
Yes, I'm over here. Auntie Krystyn is saying yes, yes, yes.
Mm-mm, mm-mm.
A woman.
Yeah. So yeah, the ovulation cycle is such a beautiful time too, and that's
It's a really good time to connect with others. Like you're talking about sister circles,
yes.
sisters from another mister,
Mm-hmm.
collaborations. Like this is the time to connect, and like we're very radiant during ovulation.
Yeah, glowy.
Yeah.
Okay, but let's talk about this for a second. Do you feel that as a society we have shamed women into not talking about our
100%.
periods and being like,
we have.
let's go, like let's talk about it, let's celebrate.
I do want to talk about it. I do want to celebrate.
And because the other
100%.
thing that I think is kind of shitty is when you have, now Jeff has always been amazing, but I'm sure there are women listening that have had relationships with men that were like completely grossed out by it, completely didn't get it, was just like, bleh, you know, and you just want to punch him right in the ball sack.
Right.
And I think that
we're very blessed with husbands that are understanding.
And Graham will be too.
Right.
Because I will continue to normalize it for him and be like, you're going to be with someone around, you have sisters. Like, this is something that just comes with the territory, bud. There's nothing gross about it. All right.
If you are looking for an affirmation for your ovulation, Oh
my God. It's a rhyming word.
I shine. I speak my truth. I can't even get through it now. I magnetize magic.
Ooh. I feel like that should just be my affirmation every day. I magnetize magic.
Yeah. Shall we talk about the luteal phase?
Yeah, you should.
The luteal phase is connected with the waning moon energy, which can be a lot about boundaries and reflection.
And this is
not a time to start new things, my friends.
No. In which order are the cycles that we just went through?
So the follicular phase does begin on the day you get your period and ends at ovulation. And it overlaps with what they call the menses phase. But follicular phase does start on day 1 that you get your period. This is a time when the levels of estrogen rises and causes your lining of the uterus to get thicker.
Mm-hmm. Right.
And then day 14 is when ovulation happens.
Okay.
Isn't that right?
This is saying the menstrual phase is the first phase, also known as your period. Typically starts with the shedding of the uterine lining, which lasts from 3 to 5 days. I'm just on Pi AI.
Okay, so I think it's important to highlight the fact that we are two women who know our bodies pretty well, and yet we don't fully understand exactly what the different phases and cycles are and how they run, because there's so much different information out there.
Well, the thing is, had you told me this before, I would have said you menstruate and then you ovulate. I know nothing about follicle phase or the luteal phase. The luteal phase is the one that lasts the longest, and it's characterized by the thickening of the uterine lining when you're preparing. So it's basically when you don't have anything else going on, because I can tell really well when I'm ovulating. And there's a lot of apps out there that can also help you track this. And there's like the Nova, if you do the Nova Ring or your Apple Watch.
I don't think it actually thickens during the luteal phase. I think it just prepares, because it thickens during the follicular phase right before ovulation.
Well, this is characterized by the thickening of the uterine lining in preparation for a possible pregnancy. So if you've ovulated, the ovaries release the egg, it's holding it. If it gets fertilized during the luteal phase, it will thicken the uterus to close.
I see. Okay.
Yeah. But if you don't have a fertilized egg, then you start it again and it sheds and it does all the things.
We do implore you, if your periods start to be irregular, if you're bleeding heavily or having anything larger than a quarter is in terms of a blood clot, just go talk to your healthcare provider and get checked out.
Yeah. And if you don't have one that advocates for you, then find one that advocates for you. Because I can tell you there's plenty out there that will gaslight you instead of supporting you.
Yeah, and if you are in perimenopause, you can specifically look for a midlife gynecologist, which I did not know was a thing until the last year. And they do specialize in helping women through perimenopause and menopause.
Yeah. And these are phases too that you can't get around, right? Like you have to walk through them, and it's better to walk through them with community and with information and with love and light and, you know, helping each other figure this out, because it's a wild jungle out there. So here's to periods. Here's to fucking bleeding. Here's to being incredible and amazing.
Here's to women.
And magical. Yes. Yeah. As much as I bitch and complain, and, you know, that's normal, I wouldn't trade it for absolutely anything. It is a part of who I am. And I am so, 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 so grateful.
Grateful this amazing circle that we've created here of both men and women who can appreciate this conversation, regardless of if they are a man or if they're a younger woman that's in a different phase of life. I feel like we never heard any of this when we were younger. And I do hope that the women that are in their 20s that are listening, because we have a large part of our demographic in that age range. And I hope that they feel supported in a way that we never did.
I agree. And having daughters and little ones that we are raising up in this world that also can approach this with the strength and the understanding of how amazing it is and how important it is to normalize it and fuck the man.
And fuck the man, except our men.
Well, from time to time, I enjoy a good fuck from them too. So, you know, we are in the spirit of growing. And if we don't ask, then you guys may just assume. But we would love it if you would share our podcasts with your girlfriends, with your sisters, with your cousins, anyone that you think would resonate, even if it is a guy in your life. There's a lot to be learned from us too.
All right, I'm going to say this. I have this little visualization. Close your eyes and picture a vast ocean inside of you. Your emotional body, your womb space, your intuition. Now imagine the moon rising above it, full and glowing. As she climbs, your inner tides respond. Emotions swell like waves rising to the shore of your consciousness. Things long buried in the depths begin to surface. Truths, desires, grief, and power. This is the pull of the moon. Not to drown you, but to show you what's been waiting to be seen.
Oh, that's pretty.